improve efficiency and automation in design. This is more of like a tricks and tips type thing. There's a couple things that I want to show you that can improve your document creation speed, if you will, your workflow. And there's certain things that we can do to make creating a new document in design a lot faster. I also want to talk about a couple of things in terms of styles that I implement in some of my documentation that makes it a little faster for it to be formatted. Some variables I think is pretty cool to check out, as well as some of the AI features. I mean, whatever. AI is great. It does have some uses in terms of InDesign. I think there's one use case I think is can be helpful if you need it, and so we'll take a look at that. If you don't recall who I am, I see a couple of names in the chat pod and the participants list. My name is Anthony. I've been with the company for a long time. Started with them in 2003. We're doing all things Adobe. Before that, Macromedia. So I've been with the company for quite a long time. If this is your first time to Office Hours, this is kind of new for us. This is, I think, our third meeting. The idea is to have this community that we're going to try to build, almost like a user group. I've been thinking about it more lately. Just have an opportunity for past students, those who are interested in these products to kind of get together and learn a cool little feature, maybe ask some questions. This is not just a passive type thing here in Office Hours. So if you have questions or comments or concerns on any of the tools, this is also a great opportunity to post those questions and get some answers for those. And if you don't, that's okay. Learn something cool, take it back with you, put it into your projects. Totally up to you. Anyways, what do I have to talk about for today? So one of the first things that I want to make sure that we set up in InDesign are some preferences. I think preferences are kind of an important part of your project settings. And there's a couple in there that could actually improve your workflow, even speed it up just a tad. And these are things that we can skip and just kind of start. If you ever work with InDesign, but never really went through the preferences and checked out the settings, there's some good things in there that you're missing. And so I want to take a look at setting up a couple preferences for our application. Before we do that, though, there's one thing you should know. Preferences are different when it comes to your project level and the application level. And so what does that mean? So at the application level, if you have no documents open and you open up your preferences, those will be for InDesign entirely, right? So if I go in there and make adjustments to units of measurements, another preference, it'll be applied to the application, and those applications will be set for every time you use InDesign. Now, if you have a document open and you modify your preferences, then those preferences become specifically to that document. And so when you do it is actually important. We don't want to have any documents open at the time we modify some of the preferences so that we can just set up a good base for our entire application. If we do it with the document open, just remember some of those settings will be specific to that document. You close that document out, you open up InDesign, it goes back to the default preferences, and there you go. So make sure that when you do open up your preferences and set them up, you just do that with no documents open. That's going to be the best way to do it. Anyways, where do you find these preferences? We know this. You go to your edit menu on Windows, go to preferences at the bottom. If you're on a Mac, you go to the InDesign menu at the top, and then you go to preferences, and then you set them. I don't want to talk a lot about preferences, but there's a few in there that I think are super important, and so let's take a look at that real quick here. So I'm going to go ahead and jump to InDesign. And I'm going to go ahead and go to my preferences. So InDesign, and we're going to go to preferences, and we'll start with general. Okay. And there's a couple in here that are going to be useful for us to kind of go through and manage and maintain. So first off, yeah, I know there's a couple in here that you could set up user interface, change your UI scaling. That's cool. I kind of like when they add this because of a Mac and high density monitors, when you had, 2K and 4K monitors, you wanted to change this. I thought this one was kind of cool. Sometimes I struggle with, adjusting the transformation handles for some of my transform boxes. And so you could actually change this. I don't know if this is like fairly new or if this has been here for a while, but you can make it obnoxiously large, just like my mouse. You can make it obnoxiously large and adjust the size of the handles on your transform handles on the frames and boxes and whatnot. So that's kind of a good one. Units and increments. This is a big one for me. When you first start off with InDesign, it may be using inches as your units of measurements, or maybe even using picas as your units of measurements. And so if we change those measurement values, those points versus picas and inches, that will be for every time you create a new document. So you don't have to continuously choose and select, what type of measurement you want to use for your document. You set it up here, it applies it to the entire application, and you don't have to worry about it. I recommend using points. Points is easier to incrementally adjust things. So if you want to apply different effects or you want to scale something, it's easier to kind of visualize what 10 points is, because we all know what 10 points font looks like. It's kind of really small. And so I can kind of visualize how much that incremental adjustment is going to be. If it's inches, that's probably 0.039 inches. I don't know. So I think points, picas, if you're old school, those are two great measurements to use. Use it for your horizontal measurements. Use it for your vertical measurements. Just remember, this is a computer, so you can change the units of measurements by changing the abbreviation at the end, right? So IN for inches, PT for points, PX for pixels, and it'll actually convert it into the correct number. So if you do want to do 8.5 by 11 inches, you can type it out 8.5 IN, 11 IN, and it'll convert it to points for you. So utilize that units of measurements when you are working with your documents. Baseline grid. I don't know if you guys are crazy about this. I don't know if people use this, but this is actually a pretty cool property. I call this the church newsletter fix. So if you get a document and it has multiple thank you, Don. Appreciate that. Sometimes you can be talking into the void and you don't really get the feedback from people. So that little emoji made my day. Thank you. Appreciate that. Anyways, if you have two columns of text and if you don't put the baseline grid, what ends up happening is that the text kind of offsets a little bit and it doesn't really get aligned perfectly from column to column. And so with your baseline grid settings, it's almost like creating rulers of lines on paper. So if you ever remember like college rule and wide rule paper, it has those blue lines so that you can make sure your text is always nicely aligned horizontally. So same thing here. If you turn this on in your settings, you can define this, to the leading settings of your paragraph text. So maybe if you're using 14-point font and you want to have a leading of 17 points, you could set your incremental value to 17, and then your lines will be added, and then your text can align to that baseline grid, and then you have beautiful text going all the way across. This is one of those little small things that you can do if you're creating like magazine articles or research and you have multiple columns of text. This is a great way to keep your text looking nice and not get that church newsletter look where everything's just kind of flowing all over the place. So if you set that, you could set it and forget it and have that ready to go every single time. If not, by default, it's 12, which is way too small. Even for a 10-point font, I think that should be a little bit bigger, and you can determine where it starts, top of the margins, top of the page, whatnot. You can check that out. Another one that I think is pretty cool that maybe somebody don't turn it on is dynamic spelling. I know the dictionary in InDesign is kind of weak, and sometimes it's kind of silly, the words that it suggests when you have a misspelling, but I think it's still good to have, right? Especially if you're using InDesign as your main document tool to write your documents. To have that little red squiggly line underneath your text is kind of important. And so you can turn this on here, and what it'll do is for every new project you write and put in some text and whatnot, it'll tell you if that's misspelled or not. Along with that one here, you can look at the dictionary, you can add some new words, you can do autocorrect. So all those three categories are kind of in the same realm. I just think for a quick one is to just enable it so that you can have that quick spell checker applied to your content as you move on. This one's a big one, display performance. If you don't do this, what tends to happen is that the images you place in your InDesign documents look pixelated. And the reason why Adobe does this is that they don't know the strength of your computer, what GPU you have, what CPU you have, what RAM you have, and so they try to make it, functional for lower end machines. And so when you place graphics in there, it tends to look pixelated until you change the display performance on each image. So you could right click on each image and say high quality display, and then boom, you got beautiful images. But then that's kind of misleading when you're building because you don't know if it was a good image or a nice resolution image. You should be checking anyways, but at least here you can make sure that that visibility is applied automatically to your images and don't have to worry about it later. So I always say, hey, default view, high quality display, all your images are going to look great when you place them into your document. And again, this is not set by default, so do it now and you don't have to worry about it later in your future documents. This one's just for me. I despise the animated zoom. I've been running an InDesign class for the past couple of days, and I just keep forgetting to turn this off because I just focus on the course. But I don't like animated zoom, and so when I grab my zoom tool and I try to draw a box with it and like zooms in, zooms out, I don't like that. If this is for you, then use it. But anyways, I want to turn that off because I don't like it. Now, appearance of black. This is actually a pretty good one. 100% black ink for a swatch is great, but it tends to look dull and kind of matted if you are not using any type like special UV coating on your prints. And so if you want to include other colors in your black swatch, try to make like a rich black or a true black, we can have it display properly in your documents. And so if you didn't know this, right, black should contain other colors so that if you do want to grade it with a different color, it doesn't just go like blue, gray, black. It goes like blue, darker blue, and then finally black. There's a lot of recipes out there for a black swatch. You just got to find the one that works best for you. I think the one I use like 67, 68, 75, 90. I can't remember exactly the numbers, but that swatch will give me the richest, deepest, black ink that includes other colors when it gets put onto my document. And so here inside of InDesign preferences, you can say, hey, display all blacks accurately, and you can see what it looks like, the difference between 100% black and a rich black here. I don't know if you can see this across the zoom, but I encourage you to check it out so you can see what your documents will look like if you're just using 100% black ink. Anyways, there you go. So if we set these preferences here inside of InDesign without any documents open, guess what? Those are your application preferences, and those will get applied throughout your entire usage of InDesign. You don't have to continuously go back and make those modifications. This is going to be for the application. Now, if you want to go ahead and set it up specific to a document, then just make sure your document's open, create your adjustments, and you should be good to go. So real quick tip, setting up your settings, that'd be good for you. Makes your bones stronger. There you go. So the next topic that I want to bring up are more like document settings. So let me go ahead and click OK here. Let's get back to the presentation. If you did not know this, the default font for InDesign is Minion Pro. Ooh. The default colors for InDesign is going to be cyan, magenta, yellow, red, green, blue, and of course black. Ooh. The default design for your shapes is going to be transparent fill with a black stroke. The default table, you get what I'm trying to say here. There's a lot of defaults that are automatically implied when you create a new document. And so that can be, a little bit of a time suck, if you will, if you have to continuously add your colors and add your font and add your stuff to your document every time you build one from scratch. Yes, you could have a template and those can be defined and kind of already be configured. But what if I want to create a new document? Then you're gonna have to start over and get all those settings and put them in. Well, I got great news for you all. If you again adjust your settings for those styles, those become default styles for every single project that you build from here on out. So if I were to go to my window menu and open up my color swatches, I could potentially add all the color swatches that follow my branding guidelines, and I can use those all the time. So if I were to delete all these, just trash them here, and then maybe I'll just add a couple of colors from my CC libraries just because, cool like that. And I have these colors ready to go. And of course, the internet decides not to work today. Oh, there we go. um, I don't know if I have some Lumenbrite colors. Let's just do that. Maybe I want to add that to my swatches. Can I do that here? Yeah, okay. Good. And so now those colors will be the defaults for every new project. I could even create a new swatch here, and I could make this the true black color here. I think it was like 67, 68, 75, 90. I got to run some math real quick, but at least I have something in place. And I can click OK, put this right here, and you can see there's a complete difference between the two swatches. And so those will be my defaults from moving forward, which is going to be great. Same thing with your paragraph styles. So if I open up my paragraph styles, window styles, and all of them basically, what this will do is will set the defaults for that document moving forward. So in here, even if I just want to do this, go to my basic paragraph, I dislike the Minion Pro and I want to set to something else. You can see here, I've already set it to Acumen Pro, which is a font that I like to use in my documents. But if I want to set it to my company one, I'm going to do the new Haas Grotesque Display Pro here. And so now that font, okay, maybe not. Here we go. Double check real quick. Yeah. Now that font is going to be ready to go every time I create a new document. Not the ultra thin. That's terrible. That would be awful. So you could set up your defaults here, even for the basic paragraph. So as you build stuff moving forward, you can make sure that those styles are captured, that font's captured for every new rule that you create, and you can build your stuff from there. If you're super crazy and you import your styles now, load paragraph styles. I'm just going to choose a document that we're working on in my class. So InDesign, student files, let's just say we're working on this book project here. So my projects, unit 1, and click OK. And not that one. I can load every single style that I could potentially want to use inside of my InDesign defaults, and those will be readily available every time I create a new document. So I don't think about it. I can just place my information and go from there. This is great for like regular, technical manuals, documentation. Maybe not so much for something that's more creative, magazines or whatnot. Maybe if you have to be more creative and create styles on the fly, maybe this is not for you. But I can really see this benefiting for those who have to create long form documents, books, technical manuals, documentation, resource files. This is going to be a great tool and resource for you. And this works for all styles. So if you go in here and create your cell styles and table styles, boom, you got some beautiful tables better than the basic table. You can do character styles and already add the bold and italic style to your stuff so that you can already bold and italicize your project, your text within your projects and not have to worry about it. So it just speeds up your workflow ever so slightly and gets it going from there. Same thing with design. I know probably don't use a whole lot of design options, or I'm sorry, object styles, but again, object styles. So the basic graphic frame is a black stroke with a no transparent fill. And so every time you create a shape, that's the design. If you want to add something to it, you can do it here. And that, again, just speeds up your workflow. Okay, so since you don't believe me, I can see your doubts here. If I create a new document from scratch here, and let's just choose print letter and click create, you can see that if I grab my type tool, grab some type, fill out some placeholder text, you'll see that it's already using the Newhouse Grotesque font because it's the basic paragraph. Because just a few seconds ago, I went ahead and defined that as my font here in my styles panel for basic paragraphs. So if I go over paragraph styles and go there, you can see that's currently applied to my text and that's currently formatting it the way I want it. That's pretty cool. So do this. I've been working with a company that has specific requirements on all of their stuff, web stuff, UI stuff, documentation. And so if they were to add their colors and add their type settings inside of their InDesign application, they can go from there and use it all the time, which is fantastic. So anyways, check it out. It's pretty cool. It's good for you. Close this out here. What else do we got? We got a question here. Yes, Don. Question. I see your hand. Unless you're giving me a high five and a praise. Oh no. Fiddle with your headset while I bring up my PowerPoint presentation here. They should. So you got to make sure that nothing is open inside of InDesign. So again, make sure you're at the splash screen, the start screen of your document. Then go to your window menu, and then go to styles, and make those adjustments there, and those will add. And so now when you create your document, those should be already set in that document. Yeah. The most important thing is it has to be done when there's nothing open. Because if you do it with a document open, again, those become document settings and document styles. And so when you do close it and reopen it again, yeah, it'll revert back to the defaults. So you have to do it when nothing is open or it just won't work. Cool. Moving on here. What time is it? Oh, we got plenty of time. Yeah, slow down, Anthony. So we talked about some document setups before you create a document. What about speeding up our workflow while we're working within InDesign? So I just threw up a couple things that I thought, if you don't use this in your daily workflow, it could improve your speed and efficiency a little bit better. Add parent pages. I know I'll probably use master pages, but there's a little trick that I want to show you. Make sure that if we bring in long documents, how do we flow that within our documents? Bullets. There's actually a new way to do bullets that I think is so. Kind of give you a little context to that. I've been doing a lot of technical manual courses. It's a fantastic FrameMaker, and FrameMaker has this really interesting way of creating bullets. And when I create bullets in FrameMaker, I'm like, oh, okay, whatever. Do this process and then do this process. Okay, then I have bullets. Then I thought, well, if that's done in FrameMaker and Adobe product, it's an Adobe product and InDesign is an Adobe product, it should be the same. And guess what? It is. And so there's actually a faster way to format bullets, numbered bullets specifically, inside of your documents to make it count correctly as you build your numerated lists. So if you have to create an ordered list in your document, I'm going to show you the best way to do it other than right clicking and restarting count. And I'll explain why you don't want to do that. Headers. I know we know how to make some headers. I just wanted to show you how to create, numerated headers just because, for technical manuals, it's pretty fun. Variables are really cool. If you don't use variables, we should check them out because they do speed up your document creation. I'll show you a really cool trick with that one. And then of course, TOC, that's pretty easy. You just got to make sure your settings are correct. If your documents follows the rules, your TOC will display those items and page numbers. So let's take a look at all this stuff. So first off, what we want to talk about is your parent pages. I know you guys know how to do this, but I just want to bring it up to you here. If I create a new document, whatever it is, it doesn't matter what it is, just create a new document, facing pages, click create. Your parent pages up here at the top used to be called master pages. Controls three things. Controls design. So if you want to put logos and text and graphical elements, lines and shapes and color, you would use your parent page for that. Layout, your margins and columns, where do you want text to be placed within your document? And then pagination, page numbers, making sure that if we do add page numbers, we can put them in a certain spot. If it's a spread, you can put on the left side and the right side and make sure that we build our documents properly using your parent pages. Like I said, I know you know how to do that, but one thing that I want to focus on in your parent pages is this box right here. So this is your margins, and your margins are really helpful for determining where your text should go. If you design like this, I had a designer colleague, and she was a great designer. Her stuff looked beautiful, but every time I look at her document, I was like, "Whoa, where is everything?" She'd basically design mostly in preview mode, and when she would use a lot of guides, and those guides would be placed everywhere. Her margins weren't really being utilized. And that's a problem because your content should really be defined within your margins so that text can flow properly throughout your document. So I want you to spend the time in taking your margins, going to your layout menu, and adjusting these settings to determine where you want your text to sit, right? Do I want it at a certain spot from the header elements down into the body? Do I want a certain amount of space from the bottom footer elements into the body? How much margins do you want on your left and right area of your document away from the page's edge? There's also requirements too. So if you're going to put on a desktop printer, at least half an inch for your margins, so you know there's a safe area for your document to not put stuff in. Like logos and text, you don't want important information in there. But also for printing full bleed, you should not put anything at a quarter inch of the page, because if you do, then you might get it kicked back to you saying we cannot print this because it's too close to the edge, and they just won't allow you. So make sure you adjust your margins accordingly. Figure out where things need to go. If I want to have some header content here, make sure you push your margins down so that it sits underneath your visual elements. Again, if you had some footer elements at the bottom, make sure you push your bottom margin up so that your text fits within those areas. And it's not just for aesthetics, okay, folks? It's for a reason. If I were to click OK, go to page one, you can see that my text here, margins are set up properly. And if I flow a document, file, place, let's grab some text. InDesign techniques, presentation files, going to grab my Word document, going to click on open. And if I were to, yeah, I know. If I were to shift and click inside the margins, well, let me just do it without shift first. You can see that it loads the document and now that is ready to go. But if I were to shift click instead, boom, it places all the text, all the pages necessary to fill the entire document. And you can see here, life is good as it scrolls all the way down through your document. So by using margins, we can specifically place our content in the right spot and go from there, right? So shift happens, I like to say. Shift happens, it'll place it where it needs to go. Life is good. This is ugly. Let me bring something up a little better. It's disgusting. Okay. So the point of the story is use your pages panel, not just because you want to, put a page number or whatever and a header element. You set up your margins. If you set up your layout, you're going to have you're going to have a better time. You're going to have a better time working with InDesign and building your documents. Okay. The next topic that I want to talk about is going to be um, the bullets. Let me find an activity guide here. So I'm going to tell you the truth. For the longest time, for how long have I been using InDesign? 2000, I think 2008. So 2, 10, 12, 15, 12, 17 years. Holy cow. It's a long time to be using InDesign. And not until recently did I finally figure out the magic process of creating bullets. Because here, what I did for these bullets is that I essentially applied one style throughout it, right? And if I go to the next walkthrough, what I basically did is I took this here, I did the bad thing, and I said, you know, restart count, because if I did continue, you can see it was 8, 9, 10. I did restart numbering, it went back to 1, and then it went through and write my document. Now, the reason why this is a very bad way of creating bullets is that this is called an override. I'm basically telling InDesign, I don't care what your style is. I want you to do this. And so it restarts the count to 1 when it really should be 8 or whatever continuing number goes through. So the issue is if I were to select all my text and go to my paragraph styles panel, for some reason I keep closing it out. Okay. You can see real quickly that yes, it is in fact an override. So if I were to clear overrides in my entire document, I essentially wiped out every single restart of my bullet list throughout the entire document. And that's a big one. I was telling a story with my student here, and I was telling her that, I was making a book, a Dreamweaver book, and it was 13 units long. It was about 396 pages, and it was ridiculously long. And I was doing this. I was restarting the count, and I was going through that process of making my bullets, restart, restart, restart on the walkthroughs. And right at the end, what I like to do is clear out all the overrides. So I'll select all and clear the overrides, and then go from there. And so the problem with that is, it wipes out all my numbers. And so if I were to print it without reviewing my document, because I did that, it would come back as incorrect. And so 8 would be the walkthrough start count for this one. I go to the next one, it's probably like 20. The next walkthrough is going to be 40. And then just keeps incrementing all throughout the entire document. So that's bad. We don't want to do that. So the best way to create bullets, in my opinion, is to use a start and continue style. So here's what I mean. I'm going to grab this here. I'm going to create a new style. And I'm just going to go ahead and call this numbered bullets start. Okay. Yeah, sure. I'll make it off the same bullet style. It's totally fine. In fact, so you can see I'm not trying to pull a fast one on you. I'll just remove it. So there's no connection whatsoever. And then over here under my numbering and bullets section, there is an option here called mode. Continue from previous number. Here I can start it at 1, and there you go. So what's really cool about these two options is that if I have a style that applies the start and then I continue from there, I could always do a reset. So my first bullet instance will be start at 1, and then the rest of them will be continuing on from that number. So if I click OK and then apply it here, so that one's going to be start, and this one's going to be continue, or numbered bullets, life is good. Let's go to the next one here. This one will be start, and then this one will be continue. What? That's super cool. If you didn't get goosebumps on that, you guys are, come on, man. This is super neat. Start and then count. Start and then count. Start and then count. Yeah, I'm sorry, Ashley. I should have had this office hour session a week earlier. And it took me 17 years to figure this out, right? I just found this out yesterday to be honest with you. What I've been doing a lot is I've been creating a new list object for every single bulleted list because that's what Word does. And I thought, well, if Word does it, it might be onto something. But then I realized it's not the most efficient way. So all these word lists that you see here is imported from a Word document, and that's how they do it. They create a new style, even though it matches all the formatting, but it applies that new style every time you right click, restart numbering, boom, it applies that new count for you. Bad way of doing it, but that's the way they approach it, and I don't like that. So check it out. It's pretty cool. It's super simple. So instead of having, you know, 10, 15 numbered bullets styles, because again, that's the way that I used to approach it. Here it is. Start and continue. Super cool. All right. Thanks for validating my excitement there, Ashley. I appreciate it. Another thing that I want to show you real quick is this is more like a technical manual thing. I've been kind of this is a document I had to create for a training. And so it's kind of still fresh on my mind here. But here, setting up project preferences, right? Well, I want to call this activity, 1-1. This is going to be activity, 1-2. You get the idea. I'm going to go ahead and create headers that's going to define, all these settings. And so it has to start off with the main header for your document. So if I create a style for this, let's say here, go to my paragraph styles here and go to the session header because it's already applied. Thanks for student files, Anthony. Here, you can actually start a count for your headers. It doesn't necessarily have to be just for bullets. It can be for headers. And so here, I'm definitely able to do that with my style. So if I make it a numbered bullet, numbers, and then maybe I want to say, hey, this is going to be session space current level, which it should say 1. I'm going to make this a level 1 here. Click OK. Do a little bit of design here. Okay, so this is session 1, or I think I called it module 1. It doesn't matter. Session 1 is fine. Getting too specific here. So if I go to my activity guide here and open up that style, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that this style inherits properties and settings from this numbered bullet, from the previous one, from the session header. How do we do that? If I turn this numbers on, I got to make sure it's using the same list. And if it's using the same list, it'll allow me to continue the count. So if I go to level 1 here, you should see it should say 2 because it's the second instance of that header going down within that level. But if I change this to level 2, it restarts the count. But I don't want it to say 1. I want to say 1.1. So this is kind of confusing here, but check it out. Activity space. I want to display the level 1 number first, then dot, then the current activity number, and then I want to put a tab character because a tab character, of course, is always the best one to use. Maybe not a tab character. Maybe it's with a space. Colon space. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Look at that. Oops, I think I know what I did wrong. Don't look at me. There we go. Activity 1.1. Good. So now if I go to the next activity, I don't have to think about which order it is in. It's activity 1.2. It's activity 1.3. And so automatically it starts counting for me and I don't have to worry about the way that's set up. If I go to the next session here, this is session 2. As long as I apply that same header, session 2, it'll automatically capture that number and continue to increment that value. So session 2, this is activity 2.1, 2.2, 2.3. Session 3, 3.1, 3.2, 3.3. So I don't have to think about going through and making sure my headers are correct. If I were to delete this or change it or remove that section out, the headers will automatically numerate themselves, fix everything, and then life is good. So this is a really good way for creating technical manuals and numerating your headers. You could also use this for terms and agreements. So if you had to create some type of legal documentation, you can have those incremental values go for you. It's just basically using the same list. Both these headers are referencing the same list object. So here under my bullets and numbering, it's referring to the default list. If I were to change this, then there's no connection between those headers and the numbers won't apply. Anyways, I think you get the idea. Cool. Because we're using styles, folks, and I stress this a lot in my InDesign classes, you have to use styles. Not only is it helping you format your document and make it look nice, making it look pretty, but it also allows you to tap into the power that is available in InDesign. InDesign references your styles throughout. TOC, hyperlinks, variables. So when you assign rules to your stuff, you can then reference them and then pull it and then display it. Let me show you what I mean. I'm going to go back to I think this is page 3, excuse me. Here I have session 1 getting started. You can see here in my parent pages, I have session 1, but it's blank. This is the A parent page. So if I open up A parent, I can go in here and say, hey, this needs to be session 1, getting started, which is fine. This is fine. If this is your current workflow, great. I'm happy for you. But here's the problem. If I go back to page 3 and I say, getting started with Captivate, guess what? I have to go back to my parent pages and make that change again because it's a static text. I can use variables to control what that text looks like based off of the rules that I have applied. What? Yes, you can. Check it out. I'm going to go back to my A parent. I'm going to zoom into my thing here so you can see it. I'm not going to make this static. I'm going to remove it and add it with a variable. So there we go. To create variables inside of InDesign, you go to your type menu. There's a place called text variables. We can define all the variables we need. Yes, there are some already. If you put page numbers in your documents for pagination, guess what? You're already using your variables. You could even do things like creation date and output date and update date. Is there an update date? Modification date. More fancy. You could have your text at the bottom display when you made those changes for the document. So if you had to create versioning and tell them, hey, this has been updated last month, you could use that automatically as a variable, which is pretty cool. Okay, I'm getting off topic here. Let's stay on topic. If I create a new variable here, there's all sorts of things that we can reference in our variable as we create this. So file name, last page number, modification. Some of these are kind of similar to the ones we have already defined, but here's the one I'm looking for. It's called running header, paragraph, and character style. So if it locates a style in that page with that rule applied to it, with that style applied to it, I think I repeated myself. If you find text with that style applied to it, it can capture that text and place it anywhere it wants. So here, let's say I want to call this the session name running header. I don't know. I just made that up. That's a long name. It's just session name. I'm going to go ahead and choose running header paragraph style. What style am I going to pull it from? Look at that. I already picked it up. It's not going to do that. It's just, student files. Session header. There it is. So that's going to pull the information from the session header, and it's going to pull from the first instance of that variable. I could even get crazier and say before that, type in session, but that one would need to be updated. So I'm not going to do that. It's not possible. Anyways, this looks good. So I'll go ahead and click OK. That variable has been created. All I have to do is insert that variable now. So I'm going to click done. Make sure my cursor is in that spot. I'm going to go to my type menu. And again, text variables, insert variable. Which variable? Session name. Boop. Look at that. It's got some brackets. I know it's code. I should have put the name of that session ready to go. So if I go to here, and we'll just do it a couple times so you can see it, put a space, and then insert the variable. We got 12, 13 minutes. We're okay. Okay, two of them's fine. You can see it here. So now if I go to page 3, look at that. Getting started with Captivate. What? Look at that. Getting goosebumps. Oh my gosh. If I were to delete this. Oh, great. I jacked it up. I hate when you do deletes like that and just there's no way to fix that. Okay, there we go. Getting started, you can see it automatically updated getting started throughout my entire session 1 section. Oh yeah. Let's scroll down. Let's find session 2. Look at that. Session 2, it already grabbed it. Adding content. Adding content. What to your project? Okay, you gotta scroll up and down. You gotta like refresh the page. Boom, there it is. Oh yeah, look at that. Super cool. So use variables, folks. Variables are gonna be a great addition to your project to make things dynamic and update automatically. You can use variables for um, header elements, footer elements, master page, parent pages. Excuse me. You can use them all for all sorts of things. Anyways, and hopefully spell yourself correctly. So stupid. Okay, what else do I have on the agenda? Table of contents. Yeah, this is pretty simple. Here in my document, if I go to page 2, let's get the TLC one here. It's ready to go. You can see here that I have it already set up. This is going to be a table of contents for the entire document. Before we do that, though, we have to set up some rules. So in my paragraph styles here, you can see that I have a TOC contents, TOC session, and TOC activity. So to make these look like a table of contents, all I have to do is just go inside of this rule, go into my tabs category, and now I can go ahead and put what are called tabs and leaders. So I want this page number to go all the way to the right, and I want to have a little dot, 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 dot going all the way across. To do that, we need to put a tab character in front of our number and then use our alignment options here. So when I press tab, how does it align when it gets pushed over to the side of your document? So if I push this all the way to the edge here, I can put a little dot leader, and there you go. Now we have some dots. Digging it. Click OK. Go to activity 2. Open that up. I'll do it real quick here. Right aligned. Close enough. Put a leader, a dot. Click OK. That looks great. So now that I have my styles, all I have to do is just create the TOC style. So yes, table of contents also has a style. If I go to layout, table of content styles, you want to configure. This is super important. For that person that left, you'll never know this. Your table of contents can also be created as a style. Why? It crashes. InDesign will crash, and for some reason, the table of contents could be the reason it crashes. And guess what? You have to recreate the table of contents over and over and over again. So if you create it as a style, you're able to store that into memory, if you will, memory of the TLC, and it'll be able to be pulled and extracted and run again. So you don't have to configure it anymore. So if you're doing any type of table of contents in your document, it's imperative you create a style out of it. If you don't do that, you've probably already done this already. It crashes. You got to recreate it again. You got to make sure you go through the whole process, and it can be time consuming. So here, make this into a style. Anyways, I'll create a new style. Call it whatever I want. That's fine. Table of contents. We're looking for session header. Session header. Add that. Then we're looking for activity header. Thank you for putting it in order. And then for session header, it's going to be using my style called TOC session. And for the header, activity header, it's going to be using TOC activity. There's all sorts of fun things in here, including books. You can even get more crazy. I had a guy who was making these little flip books for, so they were like plumbing pipe fittings, and he had these little tiny informational notebooks that he was creating, little booklets. And so he wanted to have the section title with the page number at the end. So title, I'm sorry, the beginning. So page number and then the title section, page number title section. So you could do that. You can create this in any way that you like. Anywho, gonna click OK. Gonna say OK. And now when I create my table of contents, I can choose it from the style, and it's already been configured here. There was a project that I worked on for a nonprofit. It was a veterans like personal biography. So students would write biographies for these veterans and then make a book at the end and then sell it and give it to the veterans for free. The only thing is they had two table of contents. They had one for all the conflicts. So if you want to search by conflict, Vietnam War, World War II, and whatnot. And they also have it by individual. So you can search through a list of veterans and then find where their story's at. So they had two separate table of contents. I was able to generate those as styles and then place the text as I needed. Anyways, here it is. Click OK. Lay that out. Boom, there's your table of contents for the document. That's pretty cool. This is using the wrong style. Oh, that's funny. But that looks great. Okay. So please, 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 styles are super important for your stuff. I got 7 minutes. I want to show you the last thing because it's silly. I got the surfing poster. I know that AI is kind of Adobe's direction in terms of their features and new tools and whatnot. And so for better or for worse, that's the way Adobe is going. And so if you get to use these AI features, it's great. I mean, image generative tools, Photoshop has a lot of AI tools in their selective tools and masking tools. So it doesn't necessarily have to be always generative stuff. It could also be, tool improvements that they're using, AI technology in it. Anyways, if you go to the Adobe website and look up AI features, it'll show you each tool and which tool is using an AI component behind it. For InDesign specifically, we have two options. We have generate text image. Yeah, I know, whatever. It uses Adobe Firefly to generate that graphic, and then you can place that into your frames. But it also has, which is I think a really good one, is frame fill. There are times when you want to place a picture inside of a box in one of your frames, but it just doesn't have the right proportions. And so maybe the image doesn't fill in that frame 100%. So I think this is a good one where it will fill in that gap, that space that doesn't exist with an AI generative stuff. And then the rest is just silly. So here I have this image, and if I click on the picture, maybe I want to make the image and show him more. Maybe he's getting cut off a little bit. I want to show the gnarly ways, man. And so I want to go ahead and, oops, I'm doing the frame, not the image. So there's, I guess I was. Yeah, okay, I was. So maybe I want to do that. Place him in here. Maybe his hand's getting cut off too close to the edge of the paper. So bring it in just a little bit. So there, let's just say I like that. But the frame has some space missing. And so that's kind of a bummer. I don't have the right images. I can't go out there and retake the photo. And so I'm kind of I'm kind of stuck here. So the only alternative I have is to go to my properties panel and choose fill frame proportionally. But then again, I'm stuck in the same position. This is the worst toolbar ever, the contextual toolbar. Where is it? It's missing. I hit it because I really don't like it. Where is it? Where's my contextual toolbar? It's that little bar that gets in the way of everything, and it's super annoying. Tell me if you see it, guys. I don't see it anyways. Anyways, in the contextual toolbar, you have the ability of doing some AI stuff. I really need that window though. Um, is it on the other side? Is it on the other menu? If I don't have this, I can't do it. Are you really going to do that? I can't believe it. Okay. Oh, wow. Okay. I'll find it. I know. Maybe that'll do that there. Window contextual toolbar. Wah, 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 wah. Anyways, there's a toolbar that goes at the bottom. It allows you to do that. Let's see here. There's an AI tool. There we go. So text to image. This allows you to generate text, and yeah, I know it's ridiculous, right? Um, this text to image is what we use to create that generative stuff. Another thing I want you to keep in mind when it comes to the AI tools inside of uh, Adobe tools is that you're given credits. So I've been using this for the past couple of days, testing it out, and we could already see that I've been using, a few credits. You get 11,000 credits per month. So as you do this and you run the generative tools, it's every time you generate something, it costs a credit. Uh, if you're using this a lot, that's crazy. But if you are, potentially by the end of the month, you'll run out of generative credits. And so every time you press the generate button, you'll use like 3 or 4 credits depending what application you're using. So just be aware of that. Anyways, there's 2 options: generative expand and text to image. So if I do generative expand and click the button, what it'll do is it'll look at the picture, analyze it, and then fill in that gap with its own idea of what it should look like. So I'll give it a second here to fill in. Can't speed this up, folks. We're stuck here. But look at that. That's pretty cool. And so it gives me some variations that I could use. And now I have that area filled in. I think it looks pretty good. I mean, no one's going to really know that that's not the tube, right? That was generated via uh, via AI. So this could be a useful tool. I feel like this is one of those ones that is helpful and I would definitely use in my day-to-day operations. But the generative one, maybe not, right? So I want to say like a giraffe catching some waves. Oh, this is terrible. And so I'm just being silly here, folks. So yes, you could use it in a way to generate image assets within your frames and your documents, or you could use it to generative fill. And so here I got my giraffe catching some waves. Yeah. That's pretty great. So dumb. Oh, I forgot to put him on a surfboard. So yeah, this is ridiculous. Anyways, experiment, right? Um, I know sometimes, depending on your environment, you might have those AI tools turned off. Um, but if you can get off network and try them out, they're pretty cool, right? You could even try them in outside of InDesign. So if you go to Adobe Express, you can get access to Firefly from there, and you can do your image generation there. It's the same tool, it's just integrated into the application. Anyways, let's get back here. So check us out. We have some office hours that we're going to be placing out there. I think we've been doing pretty successful with these. I think we had anywhere between 15 to 220. We had a few here, and some of you dropped out. Maybe didn't like my jokes. But anyways, join us for office hours. Check us out on lumenbrite.com. Again, the code still works. So any new courses that we add, any new, let me say this, any new office hours that we add, if you still have that promo code, it'll still work. I'm not sure what we can do. I have some ideas, but I would also like some input from you all. So if you could, for me, please, in the eval, if you could quickly fill that out. I'll put this in the chat pod too. If you can fill this out for us, and then even let us know like what ideas that you would want to see in an office hours, that would help out too. Again, it's not just us always coming up with the same ideas and thinking what we like. This should be a community. That was the idea behind this project of mine for Lumenbrite. So if you have any ideas, please, submit those ideas there as well. We'll kind of reconvene at the end of next month to see our success stories and see if it actually worked out well. And we'll broadcast and communicate with you all on any future office hour options. So please check us out, lumenbrite.com. Please fill us out, give us your feedback. And if you want to catch me on my goofy little skate videos, you can reach me on my Instagram. If you have questions or comments or concerns, you can send me an email at Bueno at Lumenbrite. Check out our Lumenbrite training channel on YouTube. We have some videos that we're going to be adding up soon. And then we have a blog to announce, and we're going to announce that on the last user group, last office hours meeting next month. So please join that one. For next month, it's going to be masking, mastering. So using mask in the 3 tools, InDesign, Photoshop, and Illustrator. So check it out. And hey, hang out with us again. You'll see me again next month. Anyways, stick around if you have questions. If not, have a great Thursday, and we'll see you in about 30 days.